Good evening, or good morning. Good morning. This is Eli and Thomas, and we've decided to try something new on our aphorism channel, and that is to do a cooking recipes, a couple of them, and use that as a vehicle for some good aphorisms. And today we are going to be cooking some prune pudding, a great holiday dish that was my mother's favorite back in the 1950s, and that's what we're going to do today. And in preparation from that, the ingredients are 2 eggs beaten, Crisco, some Crisco melted, a half a cup of brown sugar, a cup of flour, a cup of prunes, which Eli is going to be chopping, which have been cooked. So you get dried prunes and cook them for a few minutes. And then some sour milk, which I'll tell you how we make in a while, and some soda. And that's what we do. Now, in preparation for this, I cooked the prunes about 5 minutes in simmering water. And then the key to this whole operation is that you have a big roasting thing that has a grate in the bottom that is filled up to halfway up these, that's boiling when you put the prune pudding in there. It's got to be boiling, and it has to stay boiling for 2 hours. And then you have to have another pot of water that's hot. When this goes down, you have to fill it in, and you need that boiling. So that's what we do here. And the first thing we're going to do is Eli's going to chop some prunes, and I'm going to beat the eggs. Okay, we're on. Sometimes cooking is like love. And there are many different aphorisms about cooking and love. My favorite is cooking is like love. It's messy. That's it. Now, when I'm doing these eggs, if you notice, I'm using an old-fashioned beater, which is one of my mother's favorite old beaters. And we'll beat these up really good. And while we're doing that, Eli is chopping up the cooked prunes.
Yes.
Which, for people that aren't too familiar with prunes are one of the sweetest fruits out there. And they're plums, they're dried plums, and they're kind of like grapes that are made into raisins. These are plums that are made into prunes. I like to beat up these eggs really good. That's good enough. And we are going to put the brown sugar, the Crisco, and the prunes in there. Now, it's important that you follow this exact way you put this recipe together. Each ingredient goes in order. So I will melt the Crisco. I'll check to see that the water is boiling. And we will go from there. Now, there's a lot of discussion about what is a joy in cooking. The joy of getting together and cooking with someone is a joy. Eli and I love to cook together, don't we?
Yeah.
But at the heart of it, cooking is for others. We are cooking for others, and that's where the joy comes in. Not done yet. And I look at my water, it's bubbling away, it's good. And this is melting away. Just a couple more seconds. And this is a recipe that my family has been making every Christmas and New Year's, Thanksgiving, since since I was born, and that was 80 years ago. So the next job we have is to put the brown sugar in with the eggs, 1 cup of brown sugar, and the Crisco. I don't want to put it in quite yet. Okay.
Is that about good?
That's pretty good.
Good.
A cup of prunes. And the Crisco, half a cup of Crisco, a cup of prunes, a cup of brown sugar. Hope I don't cook those eggs. And then we mix that up. Can we get a spoon? It's really an easy recipe, but it's important to follow the exact steps. Don't substitute butter for Crisco or lard. You use Crisco. That's because it was always made that way, and there's a reason for it. Now, Eli, your next job right here is to grease, really well grease with your fingers, those entire cans up to the top.
Okay.
Glob your, as you can see, this is, what you want to do here is you want to go in here and get a glob of grease like this, and push it in every nook and cranny all the way up to the top. Okay?
Okay.
I'll leave you with that. Get this off of my hand. And you need another kitchen towel.
Oh, yes.
So he's globbing up those cans, and I am putting the flour in the here. So we've got the first 2 things included, and they're included in order. Mix this up. The joy of this dish is the second part, which if we have time, we'll make some of. But I will put the recipe online of what we call the hard sauce, and that is a sauce made with whipped cream and confectioner sugar. And it's a wonderful thing that go on top of the Prune pudding. My mother always made a double recipe of it because my sister and I just loved it so much we used a lot of it. So we just mix this up. You don't have to beat it. It's not a beatable kind of thing. Just get the flour mixed in good. As you can see, that it's really gooey and globby, which is what it's supposed to be. And the next step is a rather strange one. Let me get my check the water again. It's bubbling away in there. Adjust it a little bit. Put the prunes away. Prunes are pretty good. Okay, so that's where we are.
How's that?
If you got it all the way up to the top of the rim, up there done, and there's plenty of it there, that's what we need. Because the key to that is we have to get these out of the pan. And the only way we're going to get them out of is if they're well greased. Okay?
Okay.
Then, our next step is to put in the sour milk. Now, the recipe called for a tablespoon of sour milk. Now, some people would just put in buttermilk. The recipe my mother had for sour milk was 1 tablespoon of vinegar to 1 cup of milk, and it creates sour milk for you. Best if the milk is warm and not cold. So that's what I did here. I took a quarter of a cup of milk and a teaspoon of vinegar, put it in here, let it set for a while, and it gets curdled, and that's exactly what we want. And so what we're going to do, what it calls for, and this is one of the timely things that we have to do in this recipe, is the water's boiling. That's good. The secondary pot of water is cooking away. And now I'm going to take a teaspoon of soda. Is that right? 1 teaspoon of soda. 1 teaspoon of soda. And I'm going to put that in with the sour milk. And what happens there is that it bubbles away a little bit. I'm not going to use much of that. All I'm going to use is a tablespoon. Whoops. Since I didn't do this correctly, I have to have a teaspoon of sour milk. Hopefully I didn't ruin it there. And we have to mix that in. And then we put this in the pans. And that's it. It's really globby like that. And it turns into this wonderful, rich, sweet pudding. Okay, so let's put these over here, fill these half up. And we don't put any liquor in this particular dish. You could put some rum in here if you wanted to, or any kind of liquor if you wanted to. So many people like to put some a little bit of liquor in almost every recipe. W.C. Fields once said that he puts wine, and he has wine with all his cooking. Sometimes he even puts some in the food. That's his little joke. And we're putting this in here, lobbing it all the way up. It's a rich, gooey batter. Now, just to remember what I did wrong on that there, was that you take a tablespoon of the sour milk and you put a teaspoon of baking soda with it. I put the teaspoon in the quarter of a cup, so I added more baking soda into the mix. We'll see how that comes out. We'll find out soon enough. Mistakes are a part of cooking. That's part of the creativity of cooking. So let's spin this around. Let's spin this around a little bit. Okay, put the tops on them. Put the top on it, Eli. And you ought to be able to pick them up like this. Take this. Back up a little bit, Eli, so we can see this.
Yes.
And we take these and set them in here. And you want to set the other one in?
Mine isn't holding.
Well, this is up halfway. It's up halfway.
Yeah.
Put this back on. Now let's take a minute on the cooking. There are different, every recipe for prune pudding has a different amount of time cooking. The shortest I've ever seen is 45 minutes, which I've tried and isn't long enough. And the others are 2.5 or 3 hours, which dry it out. So my compromise is 2 hours, and that seems to work pretty well. Okay, so we have the pudding now in here. spare pot of water over here so that when this goes down I can put it in, and then when I put that in I'll refill it. And I'll set the timer. Alexa, 2-hour prune pudding timer, please.
Prune pudding timer, 2 hours.
Well, Eli, our prune pudding has been cooking for 2 hours, and it's time to take it off and see what we have.
Okay.
We won't see for quite a while, quite a bit, but we take this lid off. It's been bubbling the whole time. We've added water, but we need to add water to keep it up, at least halfway up the
Pan.
now, get the small, no, this thing. I want to put this, I'm going to slide this onto that. Right up next to it. Put that over there. Voila.
This other one's gonna be
This one-
fun.
This one may not, the top may not stay on it.
Oh. Good.
Just set that over there. We'll leave that on there. I don't know if I put some water in the prune pudding or not.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
What?
Yes, you
A
did.
smidgen? A smidgen?
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so now what does it say for us to do here? Where's the prune pudding? Now, we have our prune puddings out of the thing. And it says, steam for 2 hours. Check, now as I've told you before, we found that 2 hours is just right. Check regularly the water level. We did. Take the tins out of the water, remove the lids, and set on a rack for 15 minutes. Remove the lids. Now, let's remove the other lid. That could be more difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, you pull the lid up, and I'll hold it down.
Mm.
Well, come on. Got it. The next step is to make the hard sauce, which we can't do right now because that has to be made closer to the time you eat it. So we just finished the making the pudding. The next part is called hard sauce. Now, generally, the hard sauce is made the day that you eat the pudding. The pudding can last a couple of days after you make it and be just fine, just warmed up a little bit. But the hard sauce needs to be eaten right after it's made. So what I generally do is I pack up the ingredients, take them to wherever we're going to cook, if it's here or someplace else, and make it that day. So that's what we're going to do here, and I'll have the recipe online for you. So the ingredients for the hard sauce is 1 egg, beaten until frothy, 5 tablespoons of melted butter, 1.5 cups of confectioner's sugar, 1 cup of whipping cream, whipped, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Oh, I forgot the vanilla. We can't forget that. Have to have the vanilla. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. There is no brown sugar in this, so I will take the brown sugar away. I forgot that. That's brown sugar in the pudding. So, here's what you do. We beat 1 egg until it's frothy. We add 5 tablespoons of butter, and then we add 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. And we beat that until it's smooth, Okay? Then we whip up 1 cup of whipping cream until it's nice and peaks on it. And we carefully fold that into the batter. And then we add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And that's all there is to it. You stir that up, you fold in the eggs, or the whipping cream, and that's ready to eat. And you just need to eat it within a relatively soon time. So what I do is I pack up the powdered sugar, and the butter, and the egg, and the vanilla, and the whipping cream, and I take that package to wherever I'm going to do it, and I do it in that house, whether it's here, my sister's, or a friend's house. So that's how I do the hard sauce, which is a key ingredient to the prune pudding. You can't do the prune pudding without the hard sauce. So that's the end of this part of the video. And now we go to the ending, which will be mucked into there in some way. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Now, we will be putting this recipe up on our site, either on our site or on the Aphorism store, so that you'll find it if you'd like to have the recipe. If there's any questions, you're welcome to email us with any questions about this recipe. We hope you enjoy the making of prune pudding. Thank you.